Welcome to pop.0 with Brian Chaffin and John Keith.
Today is Wednesday, November 15th, 2017. And believe it or not, I get my iPhone 10 tomorrow. And this is also somehow a video podcast for the Mac Observer. I'm Brian Chaffin, editor-in-chief for TMO.
And I'm John Keat, and I'm just happy to be here. And as always, Brian, we have 3 topics and we're lying. So today's topics are, I wanted to start out with size of iPhones, but I think we might even broaden this up. But what are the size of iPhones yet to come, and what should they be? And maybe the role of Face ID there. Topic 2. We have to take some time to gloat because we're right.
Excellent.
We're like right all the time. At least one of us is right. So I take that as a royal we are right all the time.
Yeah, okay, that'll work.
And this time about net neutrality, I think we ranted at least twice about it. And topic number 3, for TV shows that have overshot their original, perhaps interesting premise.
Okay.
All right. Starting with topic number 1. I saw it at least originally in Apple Insider first. They brought out, it was an article about some rumors from one of the analysts, in this case, Ming-Chi Kuo of KGI.
Kuo usually is what people say.
Kuo, okay. Thank you for the correction. Ming-Chi Kuo from KGI Securities. Do you know his hit rate? Has he been one of these guys that are totally fucking wrong all the goddamn time, or is he?
No,
right?
he's right often.
Okay.
My personal opinion, though, John, is that he's not as right as people seem to want to give him credit for. People want to have him be always correct, and he's not always correct. But he is right quite a bit. He is very plugged into Apple's supply chain.
Yeah, I figure any guy that's plugged in the supply chain is going to be right, at least you would figure, say, 20% of the time, because they see some early production.
You know what my theory is on this stuff, right? I don't know that you and I have ever talked about it.
Shoot.
So when you have a leak from a supply chain, when you get some information from a supply chain, the stories that come out of that almost always have some kernel of truth. And where the problem comes is the conclusions that are reached either by the person originally interpreting the leaked information, or from all of us who actually turn around and look at that interpretation ourselves. And but at the heart of the vast majority of leaks is some kernel of truth.
Right. The one thing that I haven't been able to get a good intuition with regard to the supply chain leaks are when they're getting supply chain leaks of what may be kind of prototype runs versus deal production runs.
Well, that's the thing. That's a perfect example.
They're coming this early. Some prototype.
That's a perfect example of where you get in trouble. So Apple orders X amount of parts, and that information is leaked. Whether or not it's going to go into a shipping product is has nothing to do with the fact that it was ordered to begin with.
Yeah,
that's where people get in trouble.
For all we know, Johnny Ive wants to make a one-off for himself for his car or something.
Yeah, sure.
So anyway, the general leak is as follows, and it ties in a little bit with my rant the other week that there's no landscape mode on the iPhone X, which is really annoying. But that there will be 3 new phones in 2018. Oh, that's not, well, maybe it's news that there would be 3. And one is just an updated version of the 5.8-inch iPhone X that everyone has and enjoys today. Well, not everyone, but everyone can order today. And the new version will be a 6.5-inch, which will be physically the same size or really close to the same size as the current iPhone 8 Plus version, except it'll be all screen. And 6.5 inches, fucking big is what it is. It's awesome. And then there's going to be a medium. So interestingly, this 5.8-inch iPhone X will become the small.
If the rumors are correct.
If the rumors are correct, right. The 6.5-inch will be gargantuan in some sense because that's a very, very large screen. But on the other hand, it's a form factor we've all been using for a long time, the Plus users at least. And then there's going to be a size in the middle, which is a 6.1-inch. But the difference on the 6.1-inch, even though it's the medium size, it's going to be the cheap phone because it uses TFT or LED technology, LCD technology, instead of OLED. So it'll be cheaper to produce because it uses more traditional materials, and it'll be a cheaper model. So it's a real interesting mix. And one thing I wonder is, you know what? Before we get into that, let me hear your thoughts on what do you just think of that as a product? Let's assume that's a rumor that actually comes to fruition. You think that's a good lineup?
It seems bizarre to me that Apple would have something in between what we call the iPhone 10 today and what we call the iPhone 8 Plus today. That seems weird to me. More specifically, though, John, I think that you and I have been in agreement on this in the past. It seems like there is actual demand for a smaller form factor than the 10 or the 8 or the 7 or the 6 or the 6S, right? That form factor that is the SE today.
Correct.
It seems like there's demand for that, and so I mean, of course, looking at the letter of the rumor, this rumor doesn't preclude there being a smaller device, but having this be the smallest device, the iPhone 10 being the smallest device, that to me feels off.
You kind of got garbled at the end there. You were saying having the 5.8-inch be the smallest device
feels a bit off.
Yes. What's the screen size on the current iPhone? Just the 8, the straight 8. Is it 4.6-inch?
It's let's find that out.
Probably there was technology that could tell us these things. Yeah, it's
1334 by.
I think this would be easier to find.
Well, I'm doing a poor job of typing. It's a 4.7 inch. It's 1334 by 750.
4.7-inch. So
yeah, and the 8 is a 5.5.
So to me, the natural thing, at least
plus,
to try, would be what would a 4.7-inch screen that was all screen be? It might be close to the size of the iPhone SE, for example, physically.
That is a very fair point, John.
And so that would be a natural size, or something close to the 4.7-ish inch size, to try for an all-screen model that could. Then you'd have a small, medium, large, and I get the idea that you do want maybe something like a middle model, a cheap version.
I don't get the middle model. I don't see the demand for that. I mean, mind you, Apple has access to slightly better data than mine.
Yeah, it seems.
But have you ever heard anybody saying that, I really want something in between the 8 and the 8 Plus?
Yeah, it is a weird. Maybe in their hands they've felt these things up and said, "Gosh, this is the one that is not too hot, not too cold, and is just right." So maybe there's something to it. But I do think that there is a market for people that like a small size phone, where if you could get a 4.7-inch that's all body size and would be physically close to the body size of an iPhone SE, I think there would be it'd be a pretty successful market for it. So it is weird. So let me stop back. The fact that they would make a phone that's physically the same size but all screen, an upscaled version of the iPhone X to be an iPhone X Plus makes total sense to me.
By iPhone X, you mean iPhone 10?
No, I mean, well, yes. if you need the decoder ring, sure. And that there would be a plus size version of it, and that the plus size version is physically the same size as the current Plus models. Makes total sense to me. Not to mention, I'm super excited because it's 6.5 inch. This really is, in a lot of ways, an iPad mini. It's so damn.
It would be.
Yeah, it would be. If they made a model like that, it would be pretty darn close in function, in screen versatility to an full blown iPad mini. So there's a lot of things that could bring about, that all of a sudden you could have an iPhone that would support split screen and multitasking. That alone is, we're in a whole new realm of usability with an iPhone. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, that I agree with.
So I also could see why they would want to make a 4.7 inch bodied size that comes out to be this small little jewel version for people that want a small bodied phone. And there's no rumor of it, but I'm almost surprised they didn't do that, because it's kind of a natural to have the new iPhone SE size body be all screen as well.
Yes.
And I could see a case for the 6.1 inch being an LED where they said, you know what, those are still premium phones. Those are all, should we call them iPhone Pros, iPhone Pro models. And then you kind of have like what they did for the iPad, where we have just the iPad. This is the cheap one. It's for the masses. Everyone can get it. And we're choosing a size somewhere in the middle of all those three. And we've decided that 6.1 inch is it. Or maybe they decide 5.8, whatever. It's somewhere between the gargantuan 6.5 inch and the teeny 4.7 inch is the middle. And to pick that as the everybody's phone. So you would have an iPad Pro line that has all the interesting features, right, in the different sizes, and then the everybody's iPad. And then you could do the same thing with the phone. Now, that would actually mean that Apple was thinking of doing marketing by means of other than throwing shit and spaghetti on the wall and seeing what the hell comes out, which is their current marketing model. There's no grid, there's no anything. We do things as we feel, versus having any kind of.
Okay, but hold on. You say that, John, and I got to immediately contrast that with, that's the description I've always used for, say, Samsung. And Apple's product line is like, I don't know, an infinite orders of magnitude more disciplined than, say, a company like Samsung's.
Well, there's a spectrum. So maybe you're right. Maybe Samsung is throwing shit and spaghetti, and Apple is only throwing spaghetti. But it's still not a coherent whole, in my opinion. But reasonable people can have a different view on that. But I don't see it. With regard to their, if that ends up being their lineup, I definitely don't see it.
Okay.
Three end up being, and so this brings, I guess, a natural question too. Let's assume whatever, that the rumor is roughly right to some degree. What should be the sizes of the new iPads? Because the other rumor is that Face ID is the thing is the wave of the future. Touch ID is going away. Yeah, by the way, it's real coherent that if you know Face ID is coming out, that you release Apple MacBooks with Touch ID that are going to be here for maybe one iteration, then gone. That seems like a coherent marketing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna quibble over that. I don't. We've talked about the feature drift. I think we're pretty lockstep on that.
Yeah, but this is now. This isn't just feature drift. This is incoherent marketing in a company. If you know that you're coming out with a phone with Face ID, why did you finally update your MacBooks to have Touch ID, knowing it's going to be gone within like an iteration or two?
Yeah, especially knowing that you could do Face ID so much more easily on a computer.
And I've been ranting about this for a while from my Surface. The Surface has a version of Face ID, probably not nearly as secure, but it's so. The first time you use it, you're like, this is clearly the way that computers need to work. The phones were more questionable to me, and overall, I'm very happy with it. But there was zero questions on the computer. But the rumors also, anyway, are coming in that Face ID is coming to the iPad. So assuming we have bezel-less or near bezel-less iPads, what should be the form factor size of those? Because once you get rid of the bezel on the iPads, you know, the 12.9 inch becomes way more manageable. That'll be a really
well, you know, that's an interesting thing. Having a phone be bezel-less makes a lot of sense because the vast majority of us are holding our phones in our hands, right? You know, we're holding it like this. And I don't have my iPad handy. When I'm holding an iPad, especially if I'm playing a game, I'm holding it with two hands, and that bezel comes in handy. As it is, there are games where I'll end up touching the screen with when I'm not intending to. I don't know that I want a bezel-less iPad.
So I would suggest that what they could do on the iPad is by bezel-less, get rid of just the forehead and chin, but keep the current size bezel, the thinner size bezel on the 10.5 inch Pro, for example, all the way around, and that would suffice.
That could work. That could work. But I mean, it's, you know, to every form factor, its proper due and its proper function. Again, the way we use iPads and the way we use iPhones is fundamentally different, and so I don't think they don't. There's a lot of times when they will specifically need to not have the same form factor, and having bezel-less devices, especially on the side, seems like it could be one of those times.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I would want to try to use it. I have to say that for me, I think they do a lot of unwanted touch rejection, but I'm sure it's more complicated on an iPad than it is on the iPhone, because again, we just use it differently. So it may be, but it seems like it's coming. So regardless, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
and to be fair, my usual modus operandi for this stuff, John, is, and you're probably less kind than me on this. If Apple is going to do this, my guess is it will make sense.
Yeah, they have the benefit of, you know, doing dozens and dozens of prototypes to see that it works and feels great.
And they have the benefit of getting the vast majority of their choices along these lines right in the past.
So I got a couple issues with the form factor. So the 12, I'm surprised nobody's done an article on this, but the new iPads bend. There's a bend gate. Yeah, they're willing to happen. On the other hand, you might go, they're huge, you know, thin pieces of aluminum. Of course, they're going to bend if you treat them poorly, which of course I do.
Do you have one that's bent?
Yeah, and I just bent it back. It's pretty easy. Like, you kind of look at it and like, oh, that's off kilter. Let me just flex it back, and it's fine. But you know, the 12.9 inch is huge. It's just the ginormous thing. And if you fling it like to your bed all the time or up onto the couch, which I do all the time, yeah, or if you accidentally kind of miss sit on it because you didn't notice it in between the pillows, it's going to give a bit.
Sure.
Not terribly surprising, and you kind of bend it back. But on the one hand, I could see like them saying, you know what, by getting rid of the bezel, we could just keep the same physical size, and now this 12.9 becomes a 14.9 or something like that. Or do they go the other route and just trim the bezels off and make it that would actually improve its rigidity, right? It wouldn't be as unwieldy as the current 12.9 inch is. It's quite a block.
Mm-hmm.
It's also got the distinction of the worst choices of software interface design, in that they will let you split the keyboard on an iPad mini, which there's no point to do, right? Because your thumbs are on an iPad mini, they're basically touching. There's no point to split the keyboard. On a giant iPad 12.9 inch Pro, where you can't, there's nobody that has
right
thumbs long enough to reach through there, they won't let you split the keyboard. Makes zero sense.
I agree with that. Yep.
But yeah, all of a sudden, if you make that a little bit more compact, it might be a little bit closer to usable. So
well, that would depend on hand size.
Yeah, I guess it
I
would.
think there are probably a significant number, if not a majority, of people for whom they could never thumb type on a non-split iPad Pro 12.9 inch.
Yeah, I think that's the case. They should really fix that. But anyway, my guess is what makes sense is just to trim it and keep the sizes pretty close. So meaning it would still be like a 12.9 and a 10.5, and you know, I pray that they keep the mini, because the mini is. But I just bought I bought an old iPad Mini 4 because I'm afraid they're going to get rid of the form factor, and I really love the form factor. I had an old iPad Mini 2, and I'm like, you know what, this may be the last mini.
Yeah, which I don't get.
I don't get, other than if they do make a 6.5 inch iPhone X Plus. Yeah, now you're starting, like, I don't know, like, do I really need a mini anymore? Because at that point, that is really a mini, like, especially if they let me use split.
Yeah, but why not let consumers pick which one they would want? I would never in a million years, I say now, get an iPhone the size of a Plus model.
That's interesting. So yeah, you're right. I get where you're going.
I would conceivably get an iPad Mini.
So like if you do home automation and just want to carry a little iPad around while I sit on the couch and I watch a show and I want to bitch about the show to all you guys on one of the media threads, right? The Mini is, if it's fully charged, it's my default thing, even though it's a billion times slower than the Pro.
Sure.
The 12-inch is the worst model on earth. You can't type on it when you're sitting on the couch. I love Apple, so why would you want to split the screen? You could just lay it on a desk and type. Because I'm sitting like a lazy bastard fuck that I am on my couch. That's why, you assholes. And I want to split the screen because that's the way I'm holding it. And shut the fuck up. Why am I talking to you about this? Just do what I say, you fucking pieces of shit. So the Mini is just great for that because it's so quick to pull up, like a control for like your Hue lights or whatever. It's just a fantastic home little iPad for bringing around like that. So I totally I see where you're going with that. That it may split the market in some sense, that those that wouldn't want a plus size phone would maybe the exact kind of people that would want an iPad Mini. So fair point. All right, so I think we beat that horse. I guess I'm going to go on record and saying is my hope is that the sizes that they make are a 6.5 inch plus size model, all screen, the 5.8 current size X, and I hope they make a 4.7 inch that's physically the same size as the iPhone SE, and then I hope they make an everyman's model. I would think you would make it at the 6.8 inch size just with an LCD, right? But maybe you make it as 6.1. No, I'm sorry, 5.8. Did I say 6?
I think we could do with the first three that you just mentioned.
And just go straight.
That seems to be the sweet spot for me. Now, that said, John, I do think that there is an enormous amount of value for Apple to have this premium model and then have the ordinary models.
So I had an article on this, I don't know, it was a year ago, where I said they should have a Pro line of phones and a regular line of phones. And this would be a great point of distinction, that the Pro lines have OLED, the regular lines have whatchamacallit, the regular LCD, and the Pro lines would have like an extra gig of RAM, right? And some extra features. Maybe all the Pros have the dual lenses and the regular one. So you could see a line where the Pro line has extra gig of RAM. They have the only higher storage, so it'd only be like 128, 256, and 512 gigs of storage. The regular lines would be LCDs, and they would only have, say, 64 and 128 gig. And the Pro lines would have the dual camera lenses, and the regular line would have just the single lenses. And that would be plenty of distinction for most people, right? And all of the otherwise, all the Pros and all the regulars just come in different size screens, small, medium, large, depending upon what you like.
Yeah, and I mean we're kind of almost there right now.
I don't think they're going to go to something that logical. You do.
Well, I mean the iPhone 10 is most of those things that you set aside for the Pro models.
Well, That's one of the 6 models. So,
but I mean, the iPhone 10 is the Pro line, and the iPhone 8 and the iPhone 8 Plus, with the exception of the overlap with some of your Pro features.
Oh, yeah. So you're right. The kind of 3 of the 6 models are in place, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and that distinction, I think Apple benefits from that. So, like the idea of Apple having some kind of some kind of breakdown where there's multiple sizes of just the 10. Like, I mean, we're in other words, we're like the iPhone 10.2. I don't even know what they would call the damn thing, but where the 8 is not replaced by a 9 or an 8S, and instead it's like the 8 and the 10 are replaced by a small and large version of the iPhone 10. Well, that does not make sense to me because Apple needs that entry level.
Well, that's why I think, you go with some kind of moniker like Pro, right? You have the Pro line and just and they kind of done that with the iPads, right? They have the iPad.
They've done that with the iPad, and they didn't do that with the phone. They went with this X moniker.
Yeah. So, I mean, they still have time. They could go with that, but more to my point that they're throwing a lot of spaghetti marketing wise. It's just an incoherent product. Like you're really going in deep into that autopsy to pull coherence out, and I give you credit because you managed to do it. But you're deep in the guts there, man. The average person is looking at this and it's just a shit show. All right, but I think we've beaten that dead horse unless you got something else on it.
Nope, I'm good to go.
So topic number 2 was oh yeah, we were right.
Yay!
Yes, congratulations, sir.
Again, congratulations to you, sir.
So what were we right about? We were right about net neutrality. So I think, I mean, I've ranted so many times on this to the extent of, it's kind of like an accountant telling a surgeon doing when he's doing, no, you need to cut this way, not that way. You just shut the fuck up. Like, if you don't know about tech, there's certain topics that just shut the fuck up. Stay over in the silence. It's the same thing when people talk about encryption and don't know fucking shit about encryption. Or we should just give the backdoor keys. Okay, dipshit. If I wanted shit out of you, I'd squeeze your head. Shut the fuck up. Don't want to fucking talk to you. You're just too fucking incompetent to even engage in this conversation. So, and to be fair, this is not an easy conversation, but it's one of those things in medicine nobody tells, like a brain surgeon is like, well, here are my thoughts on how the way you should cut into the fucking brain, right? No one would think to do that. But somehow, because like someone clicked on a funny cat gif, they feel like they're totally entitled to fucking talk about net neutrality as if they fucking, or encryption, because they know anything about it. So,
we're talking about encryption or net neutrality?
Well, in this case, net neutrality. We were also right about encryption.
Yes, but we are entirely correct about encryption and net neutrality.
And by the way, big credit to you. You have the energy to keep posting these articles, trying to teach the unwashed idiot masses, how this fucking shit works, and of course it's going nowhere because they're idiot masses. But anyway,
I'm not worried about the idiot masses.
Oh,
I'm worried about the policymakers when it comes to encryption.
All right. Well, to me, I throw them in the same bucket of idiot masses. So once again, we are vehemently agreeing past.
Yes, we are. Yes.
So let me see if I could put the screen on it. But Boing Boing put out an article noting that there's a Portuguese ISP, and let me show you what this Portuguese ISP is doing, and you can please, Brian, tell me if the desktop is coming across okay or not.
It is. Yep, it's legible today.
All right, excellent for us. So what they basically are doing is they are charging the consumer more money. Like, oh, you got it. We'll sell you internet service, but oh, you'd like to message? Oh, you'd like to send iMessages or Skype messages or something like that? Yeah, that's another €5. Oh, you want to post to Facebook? Facebook, do you? Oh, that's another €5. Oh, you'd like to watch Netflix, and so on and so forth. And so just think about this. You bought internet service, and then you're paying another, looks like €25 to get very common services. Oh, you'd like email and cloud services, Gmail, you know, that's exotic, right? Oh, you don't want that to be throttled and slow as hell? Fuck you. You're going to pay another €5 for that.
Is Portugal in the EU?
Yes.
Okay, well, this is,
No, I'm sorry. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure since they're using euros.
probably
Right.
the case.
That's probably right.
Well, this is relevant. This is relevant because in general, the EU, and I know that you find a lot of this stuff to be awful, but in general, the EU does a substantially better job of protecting consumer rights than the US does.
To disagree on that topic, but whatever. This is the same. The EU is the same place that tells me about all kinds of emission standards. Yeah, stand in Rome and put your hand on any building. It comes off like there's a coal factory next door. Yet they have the highest emissions. So please.
What does that have to do with consumer rights?
Oh, as a consumer, you know, for breathing fresh air, it's supposed to be nice and clean, and they have the highest standards in Europe of protecting the you know, the individual citizenry for pollution. Yet they have the worst damn fucking pollution all over the place there. So you'll have to. It's one of those. Yeah, in theory, maybe. In practice, not so much.
All right, so Portugal is in the EU, and I'm flabbergasted they can get away with this. And here, the issue here is that apparently they are not governed by net neutrality laws.
So, well, the U.S. was. I mean, let's give a mini history lesson. The internet starts like kind of post DARPA, right? And it's just the Wild West. There's no regulations, no anything for a while. Then kind of around the .com boom era, a lot of legislators all over the individual states and then eventually the Fed are thinking, there's money to be made, taxing people to fuck, right? And basically in early days, I think it was during the Clinton era, they decided, look, we want to let this thing go, so we're just going to keep a hands-off approach. And Congress revisited that several times, and they decided, let's keep a hands-off approach to let this grow and mature and figure it out.
We've got some screen artifacting going, so we probably have to go back to this.
Yeah, we've shown that long enough. And thanks for the heads up, Bri. And then eventually we've gotten to our current glorious era of politics on a number of levels, and we've got the new FCC chairman who's been dying.
Ajit Pai, let's name that scoundrel.
The piece of shit for everything except FM radio thing. He's kind of right about, in my opinion. But he's basically a glorious piece of shit for the industry.
Actually, you know, I actually think he's a true believer in the free market.
Yeah, well, he happens to be wrong because he's one of these fucking assholes that's an accountant telling a fucking brain surgeon what the fuck to do with net neutrality. And here's a perfect example of why this goes to shit. And I didn't even give you dude, there's a 1-2 punch whammy. I've only shown you the first punch, which is the punch in the gut to the consumer. And it's a first punch to the consumer of pay more, right? To get normal services from this ISP. But anyway, let me just finish the history out. And he basically is killed net neutrality. He's like, let the markets want to be free, which is kind of a bullshit thing because he's saying that, but in essence, implementing the opposite. And here's why it's the opposite. Because one, you show that every ISP gets to hold up its own customer base and say, oh, if you want these things, you're going to pay more. But here's the killer thing. If you noticed on those screens, when they said messaging, they only showed 6 apps. So if there's a new messenger app, you don't get that on Throttle.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what? Those 6 apps are paying a price as well because they went to this Portuguese ISP says, like, oh, yeah, Apple, Skype. Oh, you would like your customers to get good performance here? Well, you better pay us. So they get paid on both ends.
Do you know if this ISP has a monopoly?
That I don't know.
Because I mean, I would not do business with this company personally.
Well, that may be the case, and we don't have that option in the U.S., right? Like in the U.S., in most places, if you want broadband performance, you've got a cable company. Yeah, that's it. That's the option.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky, right? And there are very few like if every market had 4 or 5 broadband players, I would agree with you. Like you go with the company that does the right thing. Because there would be incentive to compete. But most markets, even here in Manhattan, only this year did we get a second broadband player here We were stuck with Time Warner Cable. Pooh, may they rot in hell, all of them. Or now, think how bad things are when I'm like, oh, thank God Verizon's in town. Like, oh, Verizon is my savior. That's how fucking bad things are.
Yeah.
Fucking monopoly that Verizon has somehow become your white knight. But yeah, so Fios finally came into town. There may be.
Is that their fiber?
Yeah, it's fiber. There may be. So here are the players.
But it's not fiber in the last mile, is it?
They fiber right up to the building, and I think right up to the switch. They rewired the whole building.
Oh, cool.
It's very expensive for them, so I do have sympathy in that regard. To do it, I don't know if it's fiber right up to the hall, and then they do a coax into your house,
right?
Which is plenty fine for a gigabit at the very least. It's probably fine for over gigabit as well. But yeah, if everyone in the country had an option of Fios and Uverse from AT&T and Google Fiber, right, and the local cable company, if they had 4 companies like that competing, I might feel differently about this, but we don't. We have locally granted monopolies basically in most every town, and so you don't have an option. So fuck you. And these assholes, not only they're charging the user again for these services, there's only 5 or 6 of those services listed. So if you're a new social media app that wants to hit it big, all of a sudden you're being in some ways, Facebook should love this because it's basically creating a barrier to entry against any new social media site that comes.
It entrenches the big boys.
Absolutely. And so not only is that a double whammy, but here's the third punch. Here's the 1, 2, 3, and here's the killer uppercut. Fucking, you're knocked out and dead. So these assholes are making money on both ends. They're fleecing their customers. They're fleecing the services, saying if you want to get in, you're paying me. And the third, and keeping a block out. But here's the killer knockout punch. This is just one ISP. Now imagine there's an entire country full of fucking these piece of shit ISPs that all can do this, and they all want their toll. They all want their toll. So you have, all right, so my ISP, them their blood. Apple has played them their blood money, but the ISP that my ISP connects to across the street, that in between Apple and me, hasn't paid. So I'm still fucked because they're filtering the fuck out of it. So it just causes chaos. It's the equivalent of the country being under constant attack. I've said this in one of our earlier things, and I don't know if it was as understandable as now with a concrete example. It's endless denial of service attacks in the middle.
Yep.
Pushing traffic God knows where the fuck because of this throttling that's going on. It's such a shit show. With this, everyone should be shoving this up the FCC commissioner's ass daily. Fucking
well, but it doesn't. Okay, 2 things. One, it doesn't matter if they do.
It does.
This guy is faith-based. What's that?
It does, because then I feel better that people are shoving this up his ass daily.
Fair enough, but it won't actually change anything because he is a true believer. He's got a faith-based belief in the supremacy and perfectness of the open market. But
this is not a market question. This is a technology question and a monopoly question.
But I know that. But these guys, these fucking assholes, right? Want to believe that the free market is going to solve this particular problem and give us the best possible solution as consumers. They want to believe that despite the absence of all evidence.
I'm going to analogize this belief to another episode where we were right about. Well, actually, we don't know. That remains to be seen. But this is a flat earther belief, right? This is not like, this isn't even a climate change belief. This is a fucking flat earther belief. Because if you understand how the technology works and you understand how monopolies work, the conclusion, it's a logical, it's A and B equal fucking C kind of conclusion. There's no interpretation. There's no other sub-variables.
Absolutely.
Clear fucking cut shit. So this is one of those things, well, I just don't believe in math. Well, then what the fuck are you doing in the FCC?
Right. So one of the criticisms that will come in from, let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? Idiots. That's the word. Is that the internet did just fine before net neutrality. Thank you very much. That is fact. It is so factually wrong. The internet did just fine because all of the players followed net neutrality rules, despite the fact that it wasn't all. It was a mutually agreed upon net neutrality.
Right, and every time
right?
filtered, they were instantly outed.
Right, and the FCC under Tom Wheeler didn't look to codify net neutrality until assholes like Comcast and Verizon started trying to violate those principles.
That is correct.
So the internet that we know today grew up precisely because net neutrality was followed.
So here's another way to look at,
and I fucking hate these fucking assholes who again, they don't know anything. They don't know the facts, and yet they opine.
Right.
So go ahead, please.
Agreed. What this ISP, now think about, as bad as this one,
you're back in Portugal, right?
Right. This Portugal ISP. Let's just assume this comes to bear into the U.S. market, which it almost certainly will, because all the companies involved are scum. If you have dozens of these ISPs all along the grid, it is the equivalent of either denial of service attacks all throughout the country 24/7 all the time, or the equivalent of nuclear strikes all across the country 24/7, right? I mean, the internet was done with this, but it's going to find traffic. Traffic is going to find alternative routes and hammer sites that were never designed to take this offloaded traffic, and it's equivalently going to be creating denial of service attacks on other intermediate sites that weren't.
So we should explain what you're talking about. You're talking about the fact that because data crosses multiple pipes all along the possibly global track from server to your computer, you're talking about people, everyone who has one of those pipes demanding a toll fee, or throttling that data. That's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So and you could think of data and the way the internet works, because it's designed to route around nuclear strikes. So if you think about that basically all inside America, inside the United States, there's a spider's webs of cables, right, going everywhere. And the data wants to go through the biggest, fattest pipes, and that's where it naturally will flow, unless there's an obstruction. If you dam that up and there are other rivers off, those rivers will flood, the tributaries will flood out elsewhere, right? And but now those smaller tributaries, they weren't designed for that kind of flow. So they're like, houses are being ripped and whatever, as all that data floods out to the other tributaries, trying to get to a path of lesser restriction to its endpoint. And so you, in essence, anytime one of the ISPs flip this switch, it's creating the equivalent of denial of service attacks to everything locally around it, because the data is just like, fuck, it's bouncing off that ISP and trying to find another path around it. So all of a sudden, our universities may end up carrying a lot of this through their backhaul, and they're not designed from it. It's going to create a lot of bottlenecks, and it's going to offload a lot of these, a lot of the bandwidth on pipes that weren't designed to handle it. And more, but a lot of the pipes that these ISPs were given were also given under monopoly conditions, meaning, yeah, we'll give you this huge, big, giant piece of fiber that goes right down the center of America, which is our biggest pipe, and you get to use that as a monopoly, but you have to deal fairly about it. But all of a sudden, they're not dealing fairly about it.
It's possible that I would expect that form of extortion to be one of the latter forms that is tried by carriers, right? They're gonna try to hit we the users. They're going to try to hit the content providers, and then they're going to try to exploit their ability to block competition in order to boost whatever their own offerings may be. I would think, John, that trying to tax data flowing over pipes where they're neither the customer, whether where they're only passing stuff through and they're not involved with the sender or the receiver, I would think that would be one of the latter forms that they would try, because at that point, people will start getting up in arms.
So I haven't brought this up in the past, but I hope this is what happens when these assholes eventually try this. that someone files an antitrust lawsuit against these guys, because they do exert monopoly power, in many cases explicit government granted monopoly power. And for them to discriminate on the traffic flow like this and pick winners and losers and their own products over others is clear violations of Sherman and Clayton antitrust laws. So I hope that it becomes a very painful thing. And I hope this is a case where, of course, now we're depending upon another government agency actually doing their job, which none of them fucking do. But the FTC or the DOJ should come in and ass rape the FCC on this.
This DOJ would not do that. And well, I don't know.
That's part of the problem. But to be fair, in a lot of cases, there have been many clear cases of since the probably the last time, I guess, the Microsoft era in the 2000s, the DOJ and FTC have not been doing their job at all in this regard. There have been a lot of genuine, real antitrust,
including under Obama.
Yes. So it may be this may be partisan, but I'd actually, having watched it for quite a while since the Microsoft era, it's more just incompetence by these agencies more than anything that has prevented them from doing that. I mean, even their conclusions in the Microsoft things, you just look at them and like, you guys are high on pot and well, worse, and don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, oh, this is really a question: is Microsoft a monopoly? You know, it's took a lot of analysis to figure that shit out. Anyway, but we were right. So fuck everybody. We're all dead.
Yeah, it's super frustrating. Ajit Pai is a real
shit.
He's a scoundrel. Scoundrel is the word I want to go for. He's a true believer scoundrel.
Yeah, he's just dumb. He's just a fucking dummy dumb to the dumb fucking power is what he is. And
it's either that or he is truly just being bought and paid for. It's one of the two. He's either.
You know what? I'd respect him more. I swear to God, I'd respect him 1,000 times more if it was just like a total money influence thing, because he's so fucking profoundly stupid if he doesn't get this basic shit. I mean, even a fucking accountant, after you show, just put the fucking head in the fucking poo and like, this is the way this fucking works. It's not that fucking complicated, you fucking retard. And
it's just so frustrating. I mean, they
market was so market question, monopoly question, and a technology question. You fucking piece of shit retard.
I get frustrated because one of the things they did was made it very, very difficult to comment. Right? They buried the ability to comment on this.
That's made a difference, dude. Even the people that there were still plenty of people that, like, I think it was hundreds of thousands of people did manage to get comment, and
yes,
they were pretty,
they're still going to vote. They're still going to vote the other way.
We don't care. Fuck you. No. So the comment period was yeah, you know, if you weren't sure that our response is let them fucking eat cake and suck each other's dicks, now you are. Just if you had any doubt that was the position of the FCC, let there be none.
Yes, let there be none.
So,
let there be none. It's truly evil. The things that they've been doing, the things that have been done under Ajit Pai are truly evil. Everything from selling our browser history to this current ongoing net neutrality issue. It's true villainy. The guy is a scoundrel. He's an actual villain.
Yeah. I sadly agree with you, except for the FM chip thing. I really do wish, since there's a lot of FM chips that would be the reason it's just from personal experience. If heaven forbid you go through a bad scenario, that was Walt in the background. Yep. If you ever go through a bad experience like we had here when we had the blackout in New York City, or much worse yet, if you were one of the poor people that are stuck in one of the hurricane areas and you got nothing FM, Walt was stuck in Manhattan on the blackout day, and he was like king amongst idiots because he had an FM radio with him, so he was able to hear what bridges were closed and not. So he knew to walk over I think he went through the Triborough because it was one of the bridges that were open during that time, and he was able to literally walk out of the city, and people were just walking in mobs not knowing where the hell to go because all the cell towers. So there's a real safety issue that could be had. That chip, you know, when Apple says they don't have it, I believe them, but it's also disingenuous because it's super easy for them to have that chipset as part of many other chipsets, and they've solved that problem with the iPod. Was it Nano? Using your headphones.
Yep. I would very much like to see
totally solvable
FM radios on iPhones, considering the greater incidence of natural and man-made disasters.
Yeah, and you know, I even forgot they had a really cool software feature on the Nano. They would let you pause live FM radio and like kind of do like
that's right.
little TiVo things on it, which was pretty cool too. So you know, but that doesn't no way exculpates this piece of shit. Even you know, a blind nut. Blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. Broken clock, you know, is accurate twice.
So which is it, man? Is he a true believer or bought and paid?
You probably follow him closer than me. I'm just going by his incredibly vapidly stupid fucking expression that I believe he's genuinely stupid. Could be wrong though. He could.
So is that a third option? Genuinely stupid, a true believer, or bought and paid?
It could be a witch's brew of all of the above too. I'm going with mostly fucking profoundly stupid. Not knowing more. I've been wrong about people in the past, so that's not saying I'm not super strong on that, but that's my current. You know,
it could be. Yeah, I know. I think it's more likely he's a true believer, but
maybe
there may be an IQ issue here.
Yeah,
because it is pretty damn simple. It's pretty damn simple. This crap is simple. To your points.
Well,
let's move on.
It may not be simple with regard to initial intuition, but when someone goes through this like ABC,
listen, if you're the chairman of the FCC, it should be simple.
Yeah, someone should have briefed you on this.
Yes. Listen, if you're some person who's made the poor decision of listening to you and me, okay, fine. It may not be simple, but when you're the FCC chairman, you should have a fundamental grasp of the principles involved.
Yeah. In this case, we vehemently agree. So it's kind of boring. We've beaten this out.
Yeah.
Much as we're gonna need to for today. So shall we go to the third topic, which is shows that overshot their premise? So let me give a little. What do I mean by that? So there are a lot of shows that start off kind of neat and they got an interesting premise, but the premise inherently is one that is not sustainable long term. And for whatever reason, the shows have overstayed their welcome. So a really good current good examples of that are a show called The Last Ship. And there was another one, but I forget it right now. Anyway, the premise of The Last Ship was there was and spoiler alert, so if you're still watching this somehow, my commendation to you for enjoying pain, and two, spoilers. The premise was there's like this virus pandemic thing that kills off so much of the huge population on Earth. There's pandemonium everywhere, and there's this one last American battleship, and it's going in search of that still has kind of some kind of culture and civilization on it, and they're going in search of the cure to this virus all around. And they kind of stretch this out for 2 seasons, decently, interestingly, at least at a light level. But then they find the cure, and you just get the feeling, the other show is Designated Survivor. I'll mention that too. And you just get the feeling that the writers are like, really? This piece of shit was renewed again? And now they're pulling out things where, kind of civilization's already come back. So it's clearly not the last ship. There are more ships around than the last ship. So this whole notion that there's this one little cruising bastion of civilization and technology left was interesting. But now there's other ships. So what the fuck is the point of this show? And then they got renewed again. And amazingly, I think they've renewed for a 5th season. And the writers have got to be like, really, like, we can't go any further with this. It's clearly not the last fucking ship anymore, but they keep having to extend this because for whatever reason people keep watching this show. And Designated Survivor was another show, and again, spoilers, the premise of this show, I think Sutherland is the main actor, which is there's Kiefer. There's whenever all, like when you get a State of the Union address or something like that in America, since basically all of the Congress and the president and vice president are all in one place, if someone were to, heaven forbid, attack that, there would be no one left in government to keep the government going. So there's someone that's pulled out of Congress or out of the cabinet, usually is a designated survivor for that day. So they randomly pick one of the people in the cabinet, and they won't go to that congressional meeting. So if it blows up, that person becomes president, and there's continuity in the government, which is really interesting because there's all kinds of unanswered constitutional questions, like what happens, how do you reinstate Congress, how do you get mass elect all of a full Congress, especially since our Congress elections are offset and stuff like that, and how do you make laws in the meantime? Is the president basically leader supreme in the meantime? Really interesting things. And so the show kind of didn't delve in nearly as many of those issues as I wish. And they've kind of rebuilt Congress. And now the show's like, it's basically West Wing again. But I'm like, I didn't sign up for West Wing. I signed up for Designated Survivor, which was interesting. But the show has overshot its premise. And now it's just one of these typical, oh, the FBI chick is running down baddies. I'm like, it's just a typical bullshit political West Wing dumbass show that I don't give a fuck about anymore. So a lot of shows like this, I think, in the UK, that's the premise. That's when one of these shows that is really high concept, interesting, but is a short shelf life. And I wish the US was a little bit more like the UK, where they have shows that they actually have a story arc for. And they finish the story, and they're like, and the story's over. Sometimes that's just it. The designated survivor survived. He was president. Everything is reinstituted and back to normal, and let's go on to a new show is the real answer. But because these shows sometimes are so successful, people want to keep milking it, and they kind of destroy what otherwise would have been a good show had they just known when to end it. So I wish they would. Do you have any shows like that you ever watch and you're like, this show has overstayed its welcome?
Yeah, there's been lots of years. Got a little echo. Don't know why. Check one, check two. And I haven't seen either one of those. I think you have this most often in dramas, and it really this American propensity towards money is what's at stake. Because as you mentioned, that would have been my example too, is the UK, where you've got a television show that might last for a season. And so I'm kind of actually curious as to whether or not Future Man does. I just started watching Future Man. I know you're interested and you haven't seen anything yet, and I'm hoping we can talk about it next week.
I can't wait. Yeah, to see it. It looks like my kind of stupid.
I'm enjoying it. I've just in the last 2 days I've watched. I think I'm on the 13th episode, and I'm just enjoying the crap out of it. And I'm wondering. I don't know if it's a brand new show or I haven't done any research on it. I've just been watching it, and I don't know if there's going to be a second season. I find it would be a show that really probably should not have a second season.
Oh, interesting. So here's a show that I think shouldn't have a second season, and to actually say it had a first and second season is a little bit far. And I've been criticizing it in this case, I think, unfairly. Stranger Things. Have you watched Stranger Things?
Yes. Love it.
I loved season 1. I thought it was great. There was so much cool nostalgia stuff in it. And it was a very nice story arc. And I just watched season 2. Have you watched season 2?
I did.
And season 2 was good, but didn't live up to season 1 for me. And now I think the show's meandering and they should just be done with it. Because I don't, it's like a story arc that just, it's more milking than telling a story for me at this point. I don't know.
I in this case, I disagree. I think Stranger Things 2 was fantastic. And I thought that they did like the perfect mix of continuing with the story but making it bigger without making it preposterous. In and of, if you can do the suspension of disbelief to enjoy the premise in the first place. They didn't cross over into the world of preposterous, which a lot of movies do. Certainly a lot of TV shows do too. I thought second Stranger Things 2 was great.
Did you like season 2 more than season 1?
I like them both.
Yeah, I found season 2 definitely the lesser and the less creative, and but it's one of these I totally allow that different reasonable people can come to a different conclusion. Here's my ongoing criticism of both seasons. To call season 1 a season is an insult. Like, first of all, like, all these motherfuckers don't work. 9 episodes is not a fucking season. There isn't so much tech, especially compared to Game of Thrones, for example, in this show.
Game of Thrones is like 10 episodes, man.
Well, yeah, it's more, and it's about 10,000 times more technically intense than this show is. So there's no excuse for this show to have fucking 9.
Yeah, but you know what, man? Stranger Things, the first season was what, 6 episodes, right?
No, I think it was 9 or 10, and the second was 9.
Episode list.
They're basically very short seasons. And so, like, these quote seasons. On the other hand, I have to say, I'd prefer to have 9 tight episodes rather than these filler episodes that, in some cases, I think Game of Thrones was rightly criticized. It's like we're just sitting around doing nothing. Like
right, it was 8 chapters, 8 episodes.
This having episodes that don't achieve anything and just kill time is a waste of time. So I like the fact that the story every episode.
Yeah, I felt like Stranger Things season 1 was exactly how long it needed to be to tell the story they were telling.
Well, you could
the episodes served the story.
Let me. If they gave you all 18 episodes all in season 1, you would have been happy too.
Not necessarily.
Why?
Because I mean, if you're going to tell that same story over 12 more episodes, well, then you're going to have that same filler you're complaining about.
Understanding me. Currently, there are 18 episodes or so between the 2 seasons, right?
Yeah.
If they gave that all to you in one season, you would have.
Yeah, whatever, man. That's semantic.
Yeah, that would have been. No, it's not. It's like, look, it's not even 22.
It's a second story. It's 2 years later, right? Or a year later or something.
So that you would have been watching in mid-season, it would have just.
What difference does it make, man? It's just what you're calling it.
It's not a real season. It's like people aren't working anymore.
Oh, whatever, man. Whatever. I like the fact that these online deliveries of these TV shows allows for shorter seasons.
Well, I disagree with that, because I like to watch what I like to watch, and I like to watch a lot, and I just want it all to be good, which is not that part is true. Look, a story is what it is, and to stretch it is diluting the story. So you don't want that. I'm just saying is a function of that relative to a full season of some other show, like I don't know, like Silicon Valley, which is also shortened seasons in my opinion, but at least I think it's like 20 something episodes, right, per at least that it gives you that. But anyway, I do agree that what I like about Netflix and binge delivery is, one, I can watch it at my pace. Two, the story, it gives creators a medium to tell the story in a natural way without stretching or otherwise for commercial, for the season's needs, because sometimes you can tell the story in 22 episodes, sometimes you need 32 episodes, sometimes you need 8 episodes, right? Sure. And the story should dictate how it's told, so it's a tight and good story. So
yeah, the episodes should serve the story, not the other way around.
That is correct. And so in that, I think we are, again, vehemently agreeing past one another, although we may disagree about the specifics of it. Yeah, so a bunch of these shows have this issue where they've overstayed their welcome, and I think even the writers are like, really, we got renewed after that piece of shit season, and they seemingly do. So hopefully, this kind of Netflix, Hulu-ish delivery continues to improve products to real, genuine story arcs. By the way, what's I just gave this recommendation for Walt. I don't think he's going to take it, but I was shocked how much I liked it. I'm a fan of a lot of the kind of adult cartoons, South Park,
sure,
Family.
You like Archer?
Who?
Archer.
I haven't seen Archer. Is that good?
I love Archer. So the first 2 seasons in particular are fantastic. I think it's some of the best comedy that's been on TV in a long time.
Really? All right, I'm going to give it a try. So one show that I gave, like every time it came on TV, naturally I would just skip it, and I don't know why. Because on the one hand, I like The Simpsons, but I kind of, for whatever reason, I OD'd on it a long time ago, and I haven't watched.
Sure.
Artist is the same as the Simpsons guy, so the art style is familiar. So I was kind of recoiled by it by association. But it's Futurama. Futurama is different from every other kind of TV cartoon in that every cartoon has that cartoon reset, right? Like someone lost a limb, they got mud and shit thrown on them, and then the next episode, everything starts all over again, fresh, right? Because there's no memory of the previous history, and it's just another day in the life. Futurama has a story arc all the way through, and they continually progress through the arc. And it's kind of interesting that you could have a cartoon show that is still kind of episodically funny, and yet there is still a story arc. And maybe that would, maybe for a lot of people, that's like, who gives a fuck? But for whatever reason, I found it really interesting. And there are a few episodes in there, I am telling you, are kind of cartoon iconic, like like Scooby-Doo, Scooby Snack, Fred Flintstone, Bet, which most people don't even know what the hell that references to, but Rabbit Season, Duck Season, from Bugs Bunny. There's a few episodes in Futurama that are that classically good if you go through it and you enjoy it. So it's one of those. And to be fair, I had to watch, I think, 3/4 of the first season before like it went from, oh, why am I doing this, to, oh wow, I'm enjoying this. So the latch time for that is 3/4 of a season for me before it went from, I don't know why I'm doing this, to this is pleasure.
Sure.
Your mileage may vary. But the reason I bring that up is that's a show that didn't overstay its welcome. Actually, a lot of people are crying for it to come back, but they did kind of have a story arc, and they got canceled partway through, and so they ended it a little short, and they got renewed unexpectedly, and then they continued with I think the more towards the story arc that they wanted to. I think they still probably could pull out another one if it was renewed, but there was a story arc to this whole thing that they kind of nicely tied up, I think, at the end. So I throw that out for everyone. Have we beaten this horse to death too?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, probably.
All right. Well, I guess let's keep it short and sweet this episode, right?
Yeah, what are we at anyway?
I don't know. You're the time man.
I will tell you. We are at an hour. Yeah, we're over an hour.
Oh, okay.
So short and sweet.
For us,
going a little over. Whatever.
Yeah.
So make sure you subscribe. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube or on iTunes if you're actually seeing this on iTunes, because we are finally putting the show on iTunes.
Yes. Well, I look forward to that.
We would love to have you subscribe, especially on YouTube, so that we can get our own proper URL.
Yeah, that would be nice. Anyway, thank you, Brian. This was, as always, I love chatting with you.
Yeah, likewise, brother.
And thank you, audience. As always, thanks very much. And on that popular topic, we will see you next week. Bye. All right, bye this time.